I personally guarantee that my pillow will be the most comfortable pillow you'll ever own. It's machine washable and dryable, comes with a 10-year warranty and my 60-day money-back guarantee. Go to mypillow.com or call now to order one of my pillows. Use the promo code and I'll give you a second MyPillow absolutely free.
For the best night's sleep in the whole wide world, visit mypillow.com.
We're working to give the American people a giant tax cut for Christmas. We are giving them a big, beautiful Christmas present in the form of a tremendous tax cut. It will be the biggest cut in the history of our country.
President Trump Thursday vowing to pass tax cuts by the end of the year. But with Democrats united in opposition and some Republicans balking at the details released this week, can the GOP deliver on that promise? We're back with Dan Henninger, Wall Street Journal editorial page writer Kate Batchelder Odell, and assistant editorial page editor James Freeman. So, Kate, you looked at this bill in detail. You heard Scott Hodge. What do you make of it overall?
Well, I think Scott's exactly right that we're looking at a major pro-growth cut on the business side and nothing on the individual side that's really going to make the code meaningfully better. Now, I'll note that the House narrowly avoided sunsetting the corporate rate cut in years 9 and 10, which is a huge relief because companies invest on a long tail and make investment decisions longer than 10 years. Now, to make the math work for the budget, they had to make other things temporary, like the new parent credit. But that does nothing for growth and could be extended if Congress decides.
And the expensing provision, 5 years, as Scott said. But I think there'll be pressure on them to extend that after 5 years. That'd be my guess.
Oh, absolutely. We'll just do this every 5 years if we have to.
Okay, so Dan, the business side seems to be the best.
The business side does indeed seem to be the best, cutting the corporate rate from 35% to 20%. And let me address one issue here, which is that the Democrats and some in the media are highlighting the fact that the big cut is coming for corporations, okay? As though the corporations are something out of a science fiction movie where they just sit there in spats running the world. Corporations, the idea is to create more capital investment, which expands jobs, which last time I looked is the way most people support their families, and to allow wages to rise over time. That's a bigger deal than getting a small tax cut for most people. A real job with a higher wage. And that is presumably, surely what will happen if you cut that 35% rate down to 20.
And James, the making us more competitive with the world. We see you wrote for years in the Obama administration about these inversions, where businesses would say, I can't take the U.S. rate anymore. I want to move to London or Ireland or even Canada, for heaven's sake.
Right.
And this would be making our code much more competitive globally.
Yeah, so we've got the highest tax rate in the industrialized world, and now this is going to bring us, when you throw in the state taxes, back to average. We're going to achieve mediocrity with this cut, but that's fine.
It's still a little bit below. It's 24 for the OECD average.
Right.
I think.
So you take the 20% federal in this bill, you add the state taxes, you're roughly in that ballpark, which is good enough because there are so many other reasons to invest in the United States. We have so many advantages. If we can finally now get competitive on the tax side, you can really see that growth kick up. We got a couple of good quarters now. Maybe it keeps going. We kind of break that Obama slow growth trend, and that's what's really exciting. But keep in mind, there are tons of individual tax cuts in here. I know a lot of folks in the media want to talk about the corporations, and we love that rate's getting competitive, but the 10% rate at the bottom end is now 0. So huge tax cutting for individuals, for families.
Kate, take that on.
Well, I think we don't want a tax code that takes millions more people off the rolls and relies on a smaller pool of taxpayers to fund the government. And also, I would also note that we've got things like state and local deduction, which right now is still eliminated.
Which you think is good.
Which I think is good, but will raise taxes for some individuals in high tax areas. It's not clear yet whether that will remain remain because we don't know how many New York and California Republicans have been won over by this compromise that they're working on. But anyway, we've also got a mortgage interest deduction cap, $500,000 for new homes, which that's being treated as a tax increase on the middle class, which is ridiculous.
Yeah, it's
exactly.
This is basically just saying we're subsidy for affluent homeowners we're going to take away, which is the whole point of tax reform. What you want to do is take away the special breaks for certain kinds of behavior to be able to reduce the tax rates for everybody.
True, but I think House Republicans deserve credit for capping the mortgage interest deduction because their original blueprint left it untouched, and the realtors went wild and said this would be a tax increase on the middle class, which is ridiculous. And the House Republicans said, okay, if you're going to be greedy, we'll cap the deduction.
What they disliked was the doubling of the standard deduction from $12,000 to $24,000 because they said, oh, well, fewer people will use the mortgage interest deduction because fewer people will itemize, Dan, on their taxes. But that's okay. I mean, you want the simplicity for most people, if possible, of just a postcard on tax reform. And that's a benefit here on the individual side for a lot of taxpayers will be simplicity. The problem I have is you're not cutting any rates at very much at all.
Yeah, and the question is why not? Something we should make clear to our viewers as they try to watch the tax bill move through the sausage factory over the next...
Every dip and every tap with no surprise fees. Deposits come fast, like as soon as the next business day fast. And with easy-to-read sales reports, you can grow your business fast. Accept every card, every payment, everywhere, and get paid fast. Get started at Square.com.
You're searching for something, like the perfect deal on the perfect hotel. So wouldn't it be perfect if there was a single site where you could find the right hotel for you at the best price? There is, because TripAdvisor now compares prices from over 200 booking sites to save you up to 30% on the hotel you want. Trust this bird's words. TripAdvisor, the latest reviews, the lowest prices.
President Trump departed Friday for his first official visit to Asia. The 12-day, 5-country tour includes stops in Japan, South Korea, China, Vietnam, and the Philippines, and comes amid growing tensions in the region, including Kim Jong-un's nuclear provocations in North Korea and Xi Jinping's tightening grip on power in China. We're back with Dan Henninger, Mary Kissel, and Bill McGurn. So, Mary, what should we look for on this trip?
Well, I think his itinerary shows what the priorities are, Paul. He's going first to Japan and then to South Korea. Obviously, the focus there is to show solidarity against North Korea. And then he goes to China, where he's going to exert, I think, more pressure on Beijing to tighten the financial strings to the north. The southern leg of the trip, when he goes to Philippines and Vietnam, that is all about China, because those countries are important allies in terms of our containment of China. He's trying to reestablish U.S. deterrence in the region. These are important priorities. But my fear is, Paul, that he might go and talk about trade and what he calls fair trade, focus on trade deficits, instead of talking about free and open trade, the kind of liberalization that we need to emphasize.
On that point, Mary, if he's going to South Korea and Japan to tell them, look, we need to unite around in solidarity against Beijing. Here's your priority. And then you go in and say, oh, and by the way, folks, you need to make sure that you make this trade concession to us and that trade concession to us and the following trade concession to us. That undercuts part of his message.
Yeah, it certainly does. And by the way, it's tough for Japan and South Korea to be friends in the first place, given their history together. One other thing, Paul, that I'd note, President Trump has not spoken very much about human rights and democracy. He's going to many countries on this trip that have a terrible record, including China, including Vietnam, including the Philippines. One of the briefings this week noted that Trump has a warm rapport with Rodrigo Duterte. Not a good look for the administration. It is important to talk about these things because it sends a message to the people of these countries, not just the leadership.
Dan.
Well, I think one thing you're seeing here is what we might call a pivot to Asia. Remember that? Barack Obama's famous pivot to Asia, except that Obama pivoted to Iran to do the nuclear deal for most of his presidency, even as North Korea was continuing to develop thermonuclear weapons, lobbing missiles over the Sea of Japan. And this has gotten the attention of the American people. North Korea is clearly a threat. these other countries other than China that he's visiting are worried about China pushing into the South China Sea. And what he's going to do, something that the National Security Council advisor General McMaster really wants to do, and Jim Mattis, the defense secretary, is reconstitute our alliances over there and get a sort of broadened security network that doesn't rely solely on the United States protecting the region, but pulls in all of these other countries in an alliance that will push back against North Korea and China.
Bill, I was in Tokyo and Singapore last week, and the message that I heard consistently was that they want from the president is reassurance of the U.S. commitment. Right. What they fear is that Trump is not something distinctive, but that he's a continuation of what Obama started.
Right.
And Obama withdrew us from that part of the world, notwithstanding the rhetoric of the pivot. There were no resources he put behind it, or very few. And they see China on the ascendance, filling the gap left by American retreat.
Right.
And they fear that with Trump's withdrawal from the Pacific trade deal, for example, that he's going to continue that. What they're looking for here is him saying, no, we're not.
Right. Look, the reality starts with that the post-war experience of American leadership in Asia helped these countries democratize, helped trade, helped enrich them, and it's been very good for the United States.
And I should just tell people, you lived in Hong Kong for many years.
And it's been very good for Asia, and for the most part, who are the two people that are opposed to that? China, because it's a big country and it wants to dominate its own region, and North Korea, because they're just a belligerent, nasty little country. And these are the two issues for Donald